May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be ever mindful of thee, O Lord, my strength and my salvation. Amen. Won't you be seated? I want to talk this morning about babies and depression and all the things of life. And I think the theme that I want you to take away from this sermon is that don't skip on the little things. In the small pleasure, in the small things of life, find joy, find pleasure. If all God has in store for you in this life is that you're going to dig ditches or peel potatoes, dig that ditch and peel that potato to the glory of God. Because all labor, all that we do, we should turn over to God in His glory. There, I've saved you a half hour, how's that? I want to talk about our Old Testament lesson this morning, and it's a prophecy of Jeremiah. Jeremiah is speaking in the 29th chapter to the people of Israel. The people of Israel have been carried off from their homes in Jerusalem by the king Nebuchadnezzar, and they are exiles in a foreign land. They're not exactly slaves, but they're not free. They're sort of like the Cherokee Indians who, on the Trail of Tears, were driven from northwestern Georgia out to Oklahoma in the 19th century. A people taken from their land, never did they think to return, and losing everything, but there's still a community. And Jeremiah's prophecy from the Lord to these people in the moment of their despair, in the moment of their anger, is what? Have babies. This is what I want you to do. Have babies. Have your children marry. Work in the fields. Do the jobs that you normally do. Build up the community where you now are living, and pray for and be good to the people around you. And that includes those who are oppressing you. In the moment of the most greatest destruction and turmoil and loss, as the people are there going, what do we do now? Do we just roll over and die? God's word to them is have a baby. Now, I guess psychologically they tell us with all the hormones and chemicals going through a woman as she's pregnant, she's going to be happy no matter what. I don't think that's what God is going on. But I know in my life there have been times of depression, times when I just want to curl up in a ball and die. I don't want to be involved in the world. I don't want to see the world. I don't want to go out. I don't want to hear things. I don't want to see things. I just want to sit and be. And the advice of God in that situation, as spoken by the prophet Jeremiah, is focus on the small things of life. Do the work that you're called to do. Clean your house. Get out of bed. Arrange your closet. I'm never going to have a baby, thank God. I saw it once with my wife, Susan. That was a lot of work for me, I want you to know. Taking care of her as she was pregnant. I don't know, Susan had this idea that her husbands are designed to go buy pickles and bonbons at 2 a.m. at Stop and Shop in New Haven. But there, I did it. I suffered. But the Word of God is that even in the midst of darkness and brokenness, don't think that you have to start at the very top, that you have to explain your suffering, that you have to understand your suffering, that your brokenness has a reason and a purpose. Have a baby. Dig a ditch. Do your job. And in doing so, allow God to work through your life to rebuild you and remind you that all you do, if you do it in His name, is glorified. Last year, we've been praying for a man named Derek. He's the son-in-law of Linda, and Linda's sitting in the back row. Linda, wave your hand so everybody is embarrassed. We all know you. We can be embarrassed for you. I'll tell Derek's story. Most of you know it already, but maybe some of us snowbirds who've just returned may not be fully on board. Derek and his wife Tanya were visiting Thailand a year ago on vacation. Tanya is a ballet teacher. She has a ballet school in China. Now that China is wealthy and sophisticated, good upper-middle-class Chinese families want their children to take piano lessons and ballet lessons and all the things they have in the suburbia up north and in the big cities around here. The Chinese want that too. So Tanya has a very successful ballet school, training the slightly overweight daughters of Chinese plutocrats. Now her husband, Derek, is from Texas, and he's not a ballet dancer. He's the wife, he's the spouse of the proprietor of a successful school. And he really can't work the way he could work in the United States because he doesn't have a skill that the Chinese would allow him to do. He can't just go out and get a job because of visa and all this and that. So Derek has found a little niche. He's what is called a white-face actor. Now, do you remember the old Hollywood movies, the 1940s? How many actors played Charlie Chan's sons? How many actors play the Chinese extras in Bonanza and the John Wayne movies? I mean, it's the same Japanese guy is killed by John Wayne in 10 movies over 20 years. There's a limited number of Asian actors in Hollywood in the 1940s, and they're everywhere. Well, it's the same way in China today. You need a white guy for a film, you hire a white-face actor. He doesn't need to speak Chinese or whatever language or dialect the film is going to be there. You just need a white man in a robe. And he's made a good living being a white-face actor. That's what they call them. I'm not being pejorative when I say it. Well, he was hired to do a commercial for a financial services company. And they wanted, I think, him to play a Texan. And it's right, he wore a cowboy hat and had one of these shirts with little metal tip studs at the tips of the collars, and a bolo tie, and a belt buckle this big, and really pointy cowboy boots. So for a Chinese movie audience, a Chinese TV audience, what is this guy? He's a rich Texan. He looks like a used car salesman on the TV in the United States, but this looks like JR from Dallas. If all you know is the TV, this is the stereotypical wealthy Texan. All he needs is a Cadillac convertible with the longhorn horns on the front. Well, he's not a speaker. He doesn't speak Thai or Chinese. He's just supposed to, I think he was supposed to give a thumbs up or whatever the Chinese equivalent was, that this is a great product, folks, buy it. Yeah, I don't know, $500 in his pocket, $1,000, whatever it was, the fee, he made his fee for the commercial. Life goes on, new jobs come, and he and his wife take a vacation in Thailand. Well, as he goes through immigration on the way home, he's stopped by the Thai police because there's a warrant out for his arrest. Turns out that the financial services company that had this advertisement was a Ponzi scheme. They were advertising, make 15, 20, 25% on your money each year, guaranteed. Do you remember these commercials from the 80s of this guy in New Jersey flying around in a helicopter to various factories and invest with me, First Jersey Securities, and you'll never lose? Well, you lost because it was a Ponzi scheme. How a Ponzi scheme works is named after a Wall Street financier who came up with this crafty idea. You promise huge returns, and the first people who put their money in, you pay them the 15, 20%, whatever you promise at the end of the first year. They tell their friends, and you advertise, and you show, here are the payouts, but you don't actually invest the money that you're given. You just use some of it to pay the interest, and then when your pile is big enough, you run away, leaving people holding the bag of their lost investments. You get nothing back because it was a theft from the very beginning. And this was what these Chinese scam artists were doing, were Thai scam artists. And they hired a bunch of actors to do the commercials. Well, when it all blew up, and I bet you, I don't know if it's for certain, but I bet you some government functionary was stung by this. They rounded up everybody, including the actors in the commercial, and charged them all with fraud. Well, Derek is a normal middle-class American whose wife has a successful small business. He doesn't have $250,000 to hire the Perry Mason of Bangkok, Thailand. And in Thailand, It's not innocence or guilt, it's how much you can afford to pay that determines the outcome of your sentence. And so Derek is denied bail and he spends a year in a Chinese jail, a Thai jail. And a Thai jail is not a prison. What's the difference? A prison has cells and it's where you go after you're convicted. Jail is where you wait while you're waiting for trial. And the jail is sort of like an open air cage with the tin roof and the chain linked and the wire meshes around, and you're not in your own little cell with your own little bunk. You're housed with several hundred other men awaiting trial. Now think of it this way, you're maybe a handful of Americans, 1 or 2 Americans or Europeans, among 300 or 400 Thais waiting for trial, and they feed everybody simultaneously. So who do you think gets fed first? Who gets fed last? Who gets the nice places to sleep? Who gets to sleep next to the latrine bucket? Who gets treated when they come down with malaria? It's not the outside. Well, when he was arrested, Linda came to me to share as we were praying together. And I said, you know, Linda, I happen to know the Episcopal priest at Christ Church in Bangkok. Now, folks, if you got arrested in Indianapolis, I couldn't help you. But it's a small world. And so I called my acquaintance and emailed him and said, can you see this guy? Can you visit him? And he was about to leave and they were having a new guy come on. He said, well, yes, I'll do it, and I'm sure my successor will follow up. And Christ Church in Bangkok then began to visit him. A group of people from that English-speaking congregation of American and English and Australian expats and a few Thai locals started visiting Derek in jail, bringing him food, bringing him medicine, as often as they would allow him, the authorities would allow visitors. And then people in this congregation began to write to him. We had a little flyer a few months ago, please write, to encourage him. And I would write maybe once a month a lovely letter of encouragement. Well, Linda is talking to me yesterday at our big education class on the Saturday morning, and she's telling me that, oh, Derek is going to visit us, and he was so happy about the letters he received. And I'm thinking, oh, my pearls of theological wisdom. And she said, no, he's so happy that he wants to meet the chicken lady. And I'm thinking, the chicken lady? Who's the chicken lady? The chicken lady is sitting next to Linda in this church right now. Whereas I would have these lovely little missives about fear not and all this and that, Kathy Jones would write about her chickens. She has chickens in her yard, and she would write about her chickens. She would write about the small things of daily life. Bob and Dottie Radcliffe would write to them almost weekly, I think it was, or every month. He'd mention your names. And they would write about the small things of life. Derek grew up on a farm, I think in East Texas, where his parents had chickens. And in the hell of a Thai jail, it was nice to have a priest far away saying very nice words. But the mere act of talking about the life of raising chickens and keeping the raccoons from eating the eggs and the hawks from carrying off the birds was exactly what Jeremiah was writing about to the people of Israel. Don't worry about the big, great theological picture. Why does evil exist? Why is God picking on me? Why is this? Why? Folks, the odds are you're not going to get a satisfactory answer. Look after the chickens instead. Now that sounds silly, but it's actually what Jeremiah is telling the people of Israel. For reasons that may not be clear to you in your lifetime, God has allowed Nebuchadnezzar to carry you off into captivity. You are going to suffer. You're going to have a miserable time. But you don't just roll over and die. You have children. You do the basic things of life that never change. And you remain faithful. Don't curse your Thai jailers. Don't curse the Assyrians or the Babylonians who've destroyed your lands. Instead, be good and productive, obey the rules that have now been set over you, and worship the Lord your God. And in the daily acts of life, in the small things, find the joy of living. I have a friend, it's presumptuous of me to say he's a friend, but he's a man who I've known for about 20 years, who we write to each other, and he's a retired archbishop in a place called Kaduna in northern Nigeria. And his name is Ben Kwashi. He's a retired archbishop of that province of Nigeria. Nigeria, as Saul will tell you, is the largest Anglican church in the Anglican world. There are about 20 times as many people in church in Nigeria on a Sunday than there are in the Church of England or the Episcopal Church. There are more of them than us. And the church has grown exponentially. And one of the reasons why the church has grown exponentially is that it has been a church that has been persecuted. So the English came about 100, 250 years ago. The church was there and it was small. But as the English withdrew and the church became a fully Nigerian church, where to become a Christian no longer meant being a little Englishman, but being fully Nigerian and fully Christian, it exploded. And at the same time, the pressure from the Muslims in the north hit them as the Nigerian church discovered itself. And Ben Kwashi writes to me about the genocide, and that's a true word, that is happening in northern Nigeria right now, where the Muslims are trying to drive the Christians out or kill them. It's that basic. And that story can be repeated in the Sudan. That story can be repeated in China, where the Chinese communists are seeking to destroy the Christian and the Muslim faiths. What is God's counsel to the people of Nigeria suffering from the depredations of Fulani tribesmen? Have a baby. Have a baby. Farm your fields. Be faithful in the small things. Be faithful to me. And pray for those who persecute you. Friends, for me, this is something that talks to me when I go through times of depression. Do the little things. Get out of bed. Wax the car. Clean the house. Make up a curriculum for the next Bible study. The small things, and not just sit there and go, oh Lord, why? Because I'm not going to get an answer that's going to satisfy me while I'm sitting there. Instead, carrying on, caring. People in those places where Christians are under attack, it's continue to have families. Don't run away. Don't just wait till it's all over. But allow God to be lived out through the small things of your daily life. What if your people, like Israel, carried off into captivity? Your whole being, your whole sense of who you are as a people, it's been destroyed. Now you're another slave population for the great Babylonian Empire. What do? You have babies, you farm your fields, and you pray for those around you. Oh, friends, I have to tell you, when I go through these bouts of depression, it's so much more emotionally satisfying to hold my breath. Okay, God, I'm going to wait for you to fix everything perfectly now. Well, I usually pass out before God answers that prayer. But we shouldn't do that. Now, I'm not giving psychology advice. We have Mary, if you want to make an appointment. I'm giving spiritual advice. Stay the course. Be faithful in the little things. Live life as God called you to live it. And be faithful in Him. Oh, friends, I wish I knew why. I wish I knew why my children do what they do. I wish I knew why the government did what it did. I wish I knew why the bishop does what he does. And you know, I don't think Donald Trump or Greg Brewer are going to call me into explaining why they do what they do. But I still need to be faithful. For me, that is here, and being faithful to each and every one of you in my ministry, in my life, being faithful to my wife, faithful to my friends, being the person God called me to be. I may want the world's problems to be solved. I may want the world to do what I think is right. But I'm not in a place to make that happen. I'm in a place to write curriculums, to visit the sick, to love those lost and hurting. In your lives, what are you called to do? Where is your Christian faith to be worked out? How is God calling you in this world to make it, as Jeremiah told the Jewish people, to make Babylon a better place? How are you making Citrus County? And for those people, that family from Marion County here as well, how do you make your counties a kingdom of God? That's our task. If you know why, tell me. I'd love to hear the answer. But I know what to do. Faithfulness in the small things. And be like Sandy. Amen.